Well, what are the biggest lies that the dating industry has told young men?
The biggest lie I was ever told was, well, many, but the American style marketing of you can get any girl and the 3 tricks to get any girl where, any girl into bed. What the purists don't tell you, and one of the reasons why I started putting out rejection compilations was I wanted to showcase that most of the time it's not going to work out. So I was actually doing objectively quite well back in the day when I was doing the day game stuff, but in my mind I was doing shit. So I was going on like maybe 1 or 2 dates a week, but in my mind it was like bollocks, I should be on a new date, I should be banging a new girl every day. And but no one had told me actually that's not a reality of what's happening. Which is actually quite an irresponsible thing to do, I think.
Well, how would you then respond to the criticism that sometimes the trolls will leave, which is to say, well, therefore dating advice doesn't work because if you're just getting rejected the whole time, then what's the value in what's being taught?
Well, what's the other option? Is just give up and not go on any dates at all. Exactly. We're playing a game in inherent losses. We lean into rejection. We don't take it personally. We have to every day accept. I think it's a twofold thing, and they're kind of diametrically opposed. But you've got the fact that you've got to lean into rejection massively, and then on the flip side to that, you've got to lean into this idea of complete abundance. So by getting rejected as quickly as possible, you save yourself time, but then on flip side to that, realise you're never going to run out of opportunities to get better, and you're practicing, aren't you? It's almost like you're in a casino, the old school slot machines, and you basically get to pull the lever for free, and then as many times as you want, then every so often you win. And that's a really good way to kind of look at dating and look at cold approach.
Yeah, I mean, because when people criticise, say, rejection reels, you'll get somebody who does a troll video about a rejection reel, say, oh, look at this guy getting rejected the whole time. But as you say, what's the alternative? If you want to have any sort of a dating life, what's the alternative anyway? And secondly, to be honest, if you get rejected 100 times, but then the 101st girl, you end up dating and she's absolutely smoking and she's your dream girl, does it really matter that you got rejected those 100 times? I would say it doesn't, because partly because,
and this is why actually noting down your numbers is important. To keep yourself sane. It's a bit like KPIs in sales. And again, we took this from the legendary 6 years of challenge PDFs, which unfortunately, after sending him a message, he completely ignored me. He wants nothing to do with me. But he had this idea of coming up with your magic number, and actually you record how many approaches it takes you to get laid, and then what you try and do is just make that number better, so you refine that number, right? And we always say, for guys like us who've been doing this for a while, it's around 1 in 30 approaches in your bed, which means 29 times out of 30 it doesn't fucking work out. Now if you start taking that personally and start playing to lose basically, and getting all doom and gloom about it, then you're fucked. You're mentally fucked. Whereas if you see it as, okay, beautiful, I get to, for free, just go and talk to the opposite sex, and then every 1 in 30 that is going to work out with a hot new girl in my bed. I mean, that's brilliant.
I think it's
perspective.
I think it's fantastic, and this is the thing. I mean, we've said in the past that rejection isn't part of the game. Rejection is the game. I've mastered the game.
I think it's coming in on a micro and a macro level to rejection as quickly as possible. So seeing the girl, not blowing yourself out, going forward, putting your chips on the line, make it clear you like her. It can be a bit messy at times, doesn't matter. You're not trying to be, it's not a fucking movie. Get the digits, ask her out. If she's not keen, move on. If she is keen, out she comes. First date, don't pussy around. Go for it, sit next to her, escalate, try and kiss her, lean into rejection. We've all had those terrible dates, haven't we, where back in the day, we didn't pull the trigger. And those are the most frustrating ones, because at the end you're going, why didn't I just go for it?
Yeah. Well, there's always that sort of like the post-mortem with your friend afterwards. It's like, oh yeah, there was this moment and she kind of smiled at me, and I reckon if I'd have done something then, I would have. And it's like, yeah, dude, you should have just taken the action, man. Because like the worst that's going to happen is you try and kiss her and she turns the cheek or something like that. And it's like, well, okay, fine, whatever.
They're never going to hold it against you for going for it. They might not be interested. They might be like, look, I don't really see you in that manner. That's okay, because again, you've saved yourself time. The worst circumstances when you've been on a date for 2 hours, it's getting a bit awkward. You've got the self-imposed pressure because you haven't escalated, and then you kind of just bottle it. And remember, the state transference is very real, so she can feel your vibe. If you're nervous and tense, she's going to feel that. If you're relaxed and you're escalating and you're comfortable touching her, she's going to feel that as well.
Yeah, and ironically, well, not ironically, it's just intuitively, those things become a lot easier the more that you do this. So again, it's about frequency, and it's about leaning into rejection, doing it time and time again, pushing for rejection in each and every stage of the process, and letting the chips fall where they may, really. And you are going to get a lot of rejection, but you're also going to get a decent, you're going to get success. You're going to get enough success to have a fantastic dating life, a better dating life than most other people on the planet, really. So I personally think it's all good. But I've always had this sort of slightly gambler type mentality, I suppose, or sort of like slightly entrepreneurial mentality, where it's like, well, okay, then the odds may be stacked against me, but I want to go out and try and make it happen anyway, because it's kind of fun, it's you against the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me it's just a constant reminder that I need to, it's almost like a mantra you should develop, where you want to lean into rejection. We're big onto this idea at the moment of leaning into discomfort, and really leaning into rejection is an element of leaning into discomfort, because it's never comfortable to go for it, is it?
No.
Sexual tension inherently is quite uncomfortable, and to really go for it and risk the rejection, on a date, you go for that big move. He who dares wins. It's the old Sean Connery from The Rock quote, isn't it? Losers whine about their best, the winners go home and fuck the prom queen. People that man up and go for it, he who dares wins. I mean, that's how you win in life as a man. You have to lean into rejection. You have to risk the vulnerability of someone saying no to you. And obviously, when a woman says no to you, it's deeply existentially painful, because they're saying, right, your DNA, no, I'm not having it. So there's a reason we're so hurt by it, and there's a reason, obviously, we're so hurt by a woman cheating on us, because they're basically saying someone else's DNA is better, which on a purely creationist level,
it's
on a primal level, it's the most scarring rejection you can ever have. But again, being consciously aware of that and being like, you know what, in the great scheme of life goes on, it doesn't actually really matter. I can learn from this, I can win. You can control your own kind of mindset and still go for it anyway. Yeah.
So there's two real great lies actually that the dating industry has told. The first is that the 3 secret tips will help you get any woman. There's that. But there's also the lie that is important, or that is the correct way to measure your success in the game, because it isn't. Because actually, it's not about having just three magic tricks or something like that. That's not even necessarily a desirable thing. What's a desirable thing is to man up, to improve yourself to the greatest possible extent, to man up, to go through and take the shots, to find the people that you resonate with. And you're just not going to resonate with every woman. That's the other thing. I mean, they say, there's an old saying, rejection is God's protection, right? And sometimes you get rejected, and actually, really, it's probably better off you didn't end up with that girl anyway. Maybe for reasons that aren't quite entirely clear to the naked eye at the time, but you want to really find people that you resonate with on that chemical level.
Yeah, that's a great point. And the other way another tip that you can kind of use I think it came from Torero, is very good. He said, play the game, not the girl. So however hot the girl is, go through the same motion on a date. Like, you're going to sit next to her, you're going to try and escalate, you're going to try and sexually charge the conversation, you're going to be flirty, teasy, bantering, and you're going to go for the kiss regardless after about 20 minutes, half an hour. Doesn't matter how hot the girl is or how she's not actually that much your type. You're still just going to play the game, not the girl. So don't get too focused on the individual woman. Just go through the motion, and then it kind of takes the stress out of it as well.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, we'll have to get guys, and look, I mean, we're here to help guys, so it's absolutely fine. But we'll have to get guys who are sort of like, I met this girl, and I spoke to her in Starbucks, and there was a really great response. I could tell she really liked me, and then I messaged her, and then she messaged back, and then I sent another message, and then she goes to me, what did I do wrong? And I'll try to microanalyze every point. And there's some value in that, because obviously, you want to look and see if you've made some obvious mistakes.
30 or 40 approaches a week, but there's not in the circumstances that these guys are messaging, where they've done one approach in a week and it's flaked, and they're like, oh no, what about? And they're overly analysing. It's like, if you're watching this, do not bother to analyse anything you're doing until you're consistently doing 20 reps a week. Like, seriously, you're wasting your own time. Start doing the reps, get the social freedom on point, where you're actually putting in the numbers, and then start analysing the text conversations. Don't worry about it until you're actually doing the reps.
Because how many text conversations have you got on your phone that have kind of trailed off and led to nowhere?
I mean, literally hundreds, right? And then, again, you've got to do the reps. There's no getting around doing the reps. Once you're doing the reps, then you can start microanalyzing.
Because there's a lot of intangible factors in this stuff that we just don't know. Saying, well, if I'd have said this instead of that in the text, would she have responded? And saying, well, maybe, but equally, maybe
I think it's overrated. I really think you do a reasonable approach. She likes you a bit. And I think, you just go through the motions with the texting, not sending dick pics on the first gig. I mean, just not needy, so just kind of, the usual bullshit, and ask her out. I mean, that's it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, of course you could always look back and you could think, well, maybe I'll do something differently in the future, but you don't know what's going on in her life. Maybe there's there's probably another guy in the picture somewhere. Maybe there's an ex-boyfriend on the scene. Maybe she's having there's so many variables that we just don't know about, that you can't ever do a complete analysis and say, well, this is exactly what went wrong here. It just is what it is, and that's why we have to do volume. Simple as that.
I mean, I know one of the guys I used to work with, he really is a volume guy. He was always like from day one, the conversations, all this day game, Torero stuff is completely overrated. You should just do fucking sheer volume. And, he was a coach called Mr. K. I mean, he would approach 100 girls a day. And he's like, yeah, because at the end of the day, it's massively just a numbers game. It's you just going through the motions and not, coming across as reasonably confident, not fucking up, not doing anything wrong, and just really screening for women who are sexually available and interest. And that's, most guys get too they get too butthurt by approaching 3 or 4 girls. It doesn't go anywhere, and they take it so personally that they just give up.
Yeah, and then they start watching Wee Waffles and stuff, and it's like...
And that's the end of it, isn't it? And it's like, no, just don't take it personally. Go through the motions, do the reps, know your KPIs. So a bit like doing sales calls, if you start caring about every single sales call you don't sell, it really fucks with your head. Whereas if you're just like, okay, I'm hitting 50 calls today, you don't care. You know that some of those are going to come through. And it's really that simple. It keeps you sane.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's probably about it for this one. Anything further to add? No, Your Honour.
No, Your Honour.